Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Now, there are literally thousands of you on the line today, and we're excited to have you in this virtual room as we share the latest and greatest with the Telerik platform and mobility. Now, while we hope you can hear us loud and clear, and that we'll be free from connectivity, audio, or video challenges over the next hour, we know that things do happen. So, whether it's gremlins in our lines or in yours, a recording will be available and will be posted on YouTube later today. Keep an eye on the blogs or the Telerik Twitter account for word when the recording will be up. My name is Brandon Satram, and I'm the GM for Developer Platforms and Tools at Progress. I'll be your MC and host today, and we'll kick things off over the next few minutes. Joining me are two product management wizards in Rob Lauer and Christo Borisov, both of whom will be your guides for all of the great new platform features that we plan to cover today. And as we usually do for these events, we're giving away some great prizes, including an iPad Air 2, an iPhone 6S, and 20 platform annual subscriptions. And if you're listening to us live today, you're automatically entered to win, and we'll notify the winners by December 16th. And of course, as with all such drawings, there are rules and restrictions which you can find on our website if you'd like to hear more. Now, before we look forward, let's take a minute to look back. In the past 18 months, the Telerik platform has seen great adoption, recognition, and success. Beyond rapidly expanding and improving the product, we have done a great deal to improve the developer experience, making it easier than ever for you to adopt the platform for your projects and apps. Today, we have more than 100,000 users, 10,000 customers, and more than 35,000 apps that have been built with the Telerik platform. In addition, we have a few eye-popping stats that show just how much you all rely on the Telerik platform to power your apps, like the fact that we've handled over 667 million API calls through Telerik backend services, and my personal favorite, that we have logged over 190,000 years of end-user app time in Telerik Analytics. Now, most recently, we were named Challenger in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Mobile Application Development Platforms. 2015 was our second year in a row on the Mobile App Dev Platforms Magic Quadrant, and we're honored to have been selected and recognized as a key player in this space. But of course, we're not done. Over the last few months, we've been hard at work on a number of new features designed to help you build mobile apps fast and with the future in mind. For many of you, going mobile is about speed. Not just speed of app construction, but also the ability to create apps that are fast, fluid, and quickly expose important data and information to your customers. In addition to speed, mobility is also about being prepared for the future. Not just the mobile devices of today and wearables of tomorrow, but the smart cars, smart cities, and devices that will invariably come next. And in the midst of all of this, mobility is about going a step beyond digital workflows and processes and recognizing that it's the experience at the center that drives app success, no matter if you're building an app for consumers or for the enterprise. Great app experiences start with great tools and great UI. That's been the DNA of Telerik on our mobile platform from the start, and you'll see that shine through much of what we're launching today. Over the next hour, we'll take you on a guided tour of new features that continue our promise of making sure that developers can access platform tools and services where and when you need and with the tools you prefer, our promise of giving you the best tools for building great mobile experiences, of lowering barriers to app construction and publishing, and often most critical of all, getting your data mobile fast. To kick things off, I'd like to invite Rob Lauer, PM Manager for the Telerik platform, to the stage. Take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Brandon, and welcome everyone. Again, my name is Rob Lauer, and I'm a product manager here at Telerik, focused on the Telerik platform. And I'd like to start today by talking about the choices we have to make when we create a mobile app. Do I develop for iOS, Android, or Windows Phone? Should I go native or hybrid? Which JavaScript UI framework should I use? What runtime services like analytics, backend database, and push notifications do I need to supplement my app? Now, if this slide looks ugly to you, well, it should, Today we are bombarded with choices when it comes to mobile app development. And I don't want to make it sound like it's bad to have choices, but along with choices, many of us also want some kind of guidance. And that's why with Telerik Platform 2.0, we're helping you to manage multiple platforms, manage multiple approaches with this one unified solution. And as we talk about Telerik Platform 2.0 today, you'll hear an obvious theme of unification. Excuse the cheesy PowerPoint slide, but when I talk about unification, it's in terms of simplifying these choices and integrating all of the Telerik Platform tools and services under one umbrella. So this will bring some clarity in terms of making it easier for you to make these choices and get to work building an app, at the same time keeping your development costs in check. Now, one choice we're not going to make for you though is the hybrid versus native approach, since we have such a strong story to tell for each. And just to make sure we all know what I mean by hybrid, it's leveraging a framework called Cordova, which you may know as PhoneGap. And Cordova allows you to interface with native device functionality by using JavaScript. If you build a hybrid app with Cordova, it basically means using your web skills of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to create mobile apps that act just like native mobile apps. So the advantages of hybrid are obvious. We're talking about skill reuse. We're talking about cross-platform support with iOS and Android and Windows Phone and more. And ease of use. It's pretty easy to get started with hybrid. There are some disadvantages though. You do need a good JavaScript framework to get up and running with hybrid. You can have app performance issue, otherwise known as like an uncanny valley situation. Cordova does lag behind the latest iOS and Android releases, so you need to write Cordova plugins to access the latest device functionality. So when we talk about native, we really mean using our open source native framework we call NativeScript. Now, NativeScript lets you use JavaScript and CSS to create truly native mobile apps. And when I say truly native, I mean truly native. NativeScript is a groundbreaking new technology that you'll be hearing a lot more about in 2016. Now, why would you want to use NativeScript? So similar to hybrid, there's a lot of skill reuse when you talk about NativeScript. We support JavaScript and CSS. Cross-platform support. We have iOS and Android support today, with Windows coming later in 2016. Performance is not an issue with NativeScript. We're talking about native UI here. We have day zero support for the latest SDKs, so if Apple comes out with iOS 10, on day zero, that first day, you have access to those new APIs with NativeScript. We also provide native library and SDK support, so if you're trying to use iOS CocoaPods, fully supported with NativeScript. Of course, there are some disadvantages to using NativeScript. It is a relatively new framework, and there's maybe a steeper learning curve than hybrid, because instead of using HTML, you're using XML for your page markup. Now, you'll probably notice some commonalities between hybrid and native. If you guessed JavaScript and CSS, well, you would be correct. However, unlike Cordova, NativeScript doesn't have a web view, which means you aren't writing HTML. You're using a very easy to understand XML syntax for your page markup, and the CSS you know and love for styling. This also means if you're a web developer today, you basically already have all the skills you need to create either a hybrid or a native app with the Telerik platform. So now is a good time for me to talk about the latest and greatest from our wildly successful open source project. Since the 1.0 release of NativeScript back in May, we've had literally thousands of people downloading our open source CLI and almost 5,000 stars on GitHub. And since May, we've pushed out regular releases as the framework has matured. Recently in September, we presented a complete animation framework and CocoaPod support. The last couple of months have seen us bring preview support for Angular 2, live sync support, a unit testing framework, and so much more. Now at Telerik, we're known for amazing UI controls, and our story with NativeScript is no different. We're introducing Telerik UI for NativeScript, which will be a set of free and paid controls to bring an amazing and engaging UI experience for your users. If you've used our .NET controls before, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And as we look forward to 2016, I'm here to tell you that NativeScript is going to be a centerpiece of the Telerik platform story. Now, I just mentioned briefly Angular 2 support. For those of you who don't know, the wildly popular JavaScript framework Angular is being overhauled and made even easier to use as it becomes Angular 2. And we are actively working with Google to make sure that NativeScript is considered the way of developing native apps with Angular 2. So it won't mean that you have to use Angular 2 to develop with NativeScript, but we will make sure that it is awesome to do so. One more thing on NativeScript, make sure you check out our new Getting Started guide available at nativescript.org. I am a terrible developer and I went through it myself and learned a lot, so I suggest you check it out. Now I'm going to switch over here and take a look at some of the latest and how you get started building an app with the Telerik platform. Those of you who've used the Telerik platform in the past know that you can leverage a variety of pre-built templates and sample apps to help bootstrap your app development. Or you can start directly with a blank app and just start coding. Now, if you haven't used the Telerik platform before, you can start out with a full-featured 30-day trial that is completely free. After you sign up, you'll be sent right to our set of hybrid and native quick start tutorials to help you step by step in developing your first app. Now, I'd like to actually show you the tools, so I'm going to hop over to my Telerik platform account and start in Screen Builder. Okay, here I am in Screen Builder. Now, last May, we introduced a new way of starting an app, and that is with this tool we call Screen Builder. Now, Screen Builder allows you to pick and choose from a variety of pre-wired screens and bind them to existing data sources, simulate how they will look in our device simulator, and then export 100% clean code to App Builder. I'd like to show you some big updates we're making to Screen Builder in the coming weeks. The first is our master detail view type. This new view type allows you to generate a CRUD interface, which stands for create, read, update, and delete. And this is all on top of your existing data source. So it's a super fast way to add a data list that allows the user to manage that data with a mobile optimized form. So you can customize your forms by adding any combination of form elements as well. Now it gets even better because you'll be able to automatically generate these forms by associating a master detail view with an existing data source. And finally, in order to save time, you'll be able to save customizations that you make to your views in Screen Builder and reuse them within apps and in new apps as well. And this is all on its way in the coming weeks from Screen Builder. And yes, you can create either a native or a hybrid app with Screen Builder. Pretty cool stuff. And now when I'm done in Screen Builder, I can pop over to App Builder and you can see that the code that's generated by Screen Builder is perfectly clean, very easy to read, super easy to follow. And remember, by using App Builder, you get to take advantage of features like Live Sync, which lets you preview apps on your devices as you code them. You can take care of cloud builds, which means you don't have to manage iOS, Android, or Windows Phone SDKs. And yes, you can develop an iOS app from Windows. Finally, I can use our built-in App Store integration to deliver my final app for distribution on the iOS App Store, Google Play, and the Windows Marketplace. Now, before I hand things over to Risto, I will say I am no Steve Jobs, but I do have just one more thing to share. Currently, with the Telerik platform, you have a lot of choices in how you want to develop your app. We have a native Windows client, a browser-based client, a command line interface, a Sublime Text integration, and an extension for Visual Studio. And this is a fantastic lineup that has satisfied almost everybody. And yes, I'll admit there's a reason I mentioned Steve earlier because I'm pleased to announce a new Mac client for the Telerik platform, codenamed Proton. Now we are super excited about this project as we've been waiting for a long time, and I know our Mac users have been waiting for a long time for us to introduce a native Mac client. Now you'll notice the UI is incredibly similar to our browser client, making it super easy for you to transition between the two environments. So for example, I have full syntax highlighting and IntelliSense in my client here. And all the other features that you used to in our other clients are fully available here. I can, for example, run an app in the simulator. I have access to the DevTools here as well. And I can switch over to the Android simulator. So very cool stuff. Now we also have our full version control capabilities built in here. I can also publish to the iOS, Apple, and Windows Phone app stores. So we're super excited about this. Now, the cool thing here though is the fact that I can deploy an app on a Mac directly to a device. So previously this was not available to our Mac users. Now I can connect a device here, I can look at the console from the device. I can also go to the top of the screen here and I'm going to say build and deploy. Now when it's on my device, I can open it up. There it is, like magic. And now, yes, our plan is to eventually replace our existing Windows client with Proton because this is not just for Mac. This is a truly unified cross-platform development experience for both platforms. But we will not be replacing the existing Windows client until we are 100% certain that the experience will be even better than what you get today. All right, that's it for me for now. I'm going to send it over to you now, Hristo.
Thank you, Rob. I don't know about you and Steve, but both of you love to customize your PowerPoint templates to always look a little bit different. So, hello everybody, my name is Hristo Borisov. I work as a product manager at the Telerik Platform team, and I'm really proud to introduce one of the biggest efforts that we have started as a team here at Telerik. It is the platform unification effort. So, if you're an existing customer of the Telerik platform, you're most probably very aware of the screen on the right. It is pretty much a list of project types into the concept of a workspace or an app. So what you see here is 4 different project types. It is the app builder, feedback, analytics, and backend services. And we have been allowing customers to create as many of those into a single workspace and tie them in the way they like. Well, this seems to be a challenge for a lot of our customers, especially for new customers getting started with the Telerik platform. That is why we wanted to make things much simpler. That is why we're introducing a unified concept of an app. Using the unified concept of an app, you can easily integrate all of those services within a single app and have a much better and easier user experience and flow across the board. We have also not just introduced a fancy UI, we have also made sure that our APIs and SDKs work with a single concept of an app ID. So today we have concept of an API key in backend services, project ID in feedback, project ID or app ID in analytics, and we have really taken the steps to make this much simpler for you. Those changes are not only taking effect in our API and our portal, we have made sure that these changes are across the board in all IDEs. And making this step is really opening a huge set of opportunities ahead of us. This is not the final step. We are going to introduce a lot more unified experience for our customers in 2016, including unified settings and much more. And today I'm going to also show you a little bit more about our analytics dashboard, which is also one step further on how we are leveraging this kind of a single app concept. So let's take a look and see how the user interface is looking today. This is the screen that you're most probably familiar. This is how the different project types tie into the concept of an app. And this is how we're moving forward. We're introducing the unified application that has all the different pieces, product, services, and features that you need to create an application. So in this setup, we have our screen builder, which is really the beginning of your journey when creating a new application with the Telerik platform. Then you can transition to the app builder, where you can see all the generated code from screen builder in a nice and unified interface. If you're happening to be using our backend services to store data or to connect on existing systems such as SQL Server or Salesforce, you can easily connect to those data right here. If you're using our user authentication mechanism, you can easily use this screen and connect your apps across the board. Analytics, if you want to track your app, this is just one click away. There is no need to create a new project type and think about app IDs and so on. You can easily start everything from here. Notifications, if you want to send push notifications or email notifications, this is right here, instrumented and ready for use for you. Of course, if there are services that you're not planning to use or that you might not need right now, you always have the options to really much enable some of those components. So here is an example on how you can enable, let's say, our feedback service. And here is an example on how you can enable our business logic, which gives you the capability to have business logic on the server. Moving forward, here you can find your new application ID, which is really one of the most important things that we're also introducing with this release. As I said before, this unified interface is really allowing us to introduce major capabilities across the board. So dashboards, the analytics dashboard is one of those things that we have been introducing in the last couple of weeks. It allows you to track the performance of a single or multiple apps within a single dashboard. And this is now possible, and it is now very easy to do using our analytics dashboard from the menu on the top. Okay, enough of talking. Let's see it in action and actually go and break some things and try to migrate an existing project so you guys can see the actual experience of migrating an application today. Okay, here we go. I'm now in my platform account at platform.telerik.com. So if you're an existing user and you have apps that needs to be migrated, you're going to see this label that says take a look at our new unified app experience, and you can start the migration process from here. So before we actually start the migration process, let's take a look at an existing application that is not migrated. So this is the typical application that we have today in the Telerik platform. Those are 4 different project types: feedback, analytics, app builder, and backend services that are pretty much a composition of your app today. You can start the migration to the new user interface either from the start or from the migrate button here. So let's start the migration process for this specific app only to illustrate the new experience. So the first thing that happens is that we're showing you a new wizard that explains the reason why you need to migrate and giving you an access to an article that talks a little bit more about this unified app experience. You can start the migration, and we are going to initially automatically try to select the type of apps that you can migrate. So in this case, we have identified the feedback, the backend service, and the app builder projects that needs to be selected. You can go and do this process manually. So you can say, you can choose on your own the different segments, creating your own app. So if you have existing workspaces or apps with multiple app builder projects, you can go over from this process and select which is the one, which are the projects that tie logically together. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to migrate this app, waiting for the migration process. Okay, apps migrated successfully. I'm done. And here we go. So this is our friend's app, my social app. If you open the app, what we're going to see is, okay, screen builder. Screen builder is not enabled for this hybrid app, but we can go to the code. We can see the code for this application. We can see the data. And now the backend services, the analytics, the feedback, and the app builder projects that are logically tied together, and they now share the common settings and the common app ID that I talked about. So from here, we can, for example, go and manage the types that are specifically for this application from this nice and unified interface. So here we have the standard backend services data types that allow you to edit a specific interface. You have the users that are actually using the application with the automated emails, roles, permissions, pretty much the standard backend services operations. You have a way to go and enable analytics if you want. If you want to track this application with analytics, you can just say, okay, I want to enable analytics. This is going to spin a new analytics project, and everything is going to be tied together. You have a way to go and see the notifications. For this case, we don't have enabled notifications, but we can go and enable them. The feedback that was previously a separated project, it is now an integrated project that we can manage, and here we go. We have already 2 feedback sent for our application. Business logic, in this case, I don't think it's enabled. Let's see, okay, we actually have cloud code for this project, and we can see the cloud code and everything in a really nice and easy flow. We are also introducing changes to the way you create apps. So from the new create app experience, you pretty much have the options to go and create a Cordova hybrid application, a native script application. You can select from a set of templates or clone your GitHub repository from here, or select an analytics project that is for tracking anything that is not related to a mobile app. So if you want to track a desktop application, you can create this kind of a tracking interface, application from here. So let's create a new one just to see how it works. Test app for hybrid, for example. Create the app. Wait for it. Okay, here we go, and we automatically go to the screen builder, which is today positioned in the views tab. Here you can go and create different views. So you can select the type, let's say authentication, and then we can go and see the generated code. Here we go. Here is the code. We can go and for this specific project enable data, and it's not necessary to have data. This is an optional thing. So we want to really make sure that with the unified app concept, we are not going to have we don't want to tie you in to use really exactly this approach. If you have data in existing AWS or Azure services, or in your in any kind of a backend system, you can go and use this across the board. So we are not really trying to tie you with all those. We just want to make sure that the flow and the transitions across the board is really easy. So with this, the platform unification presentation is over, and now we can move back to Rob.
Thanks, Risto. It's me again. You already know this part. But one of the promises of Telerik Platform 2.0 is to make it easier for you to build a complete app. And by a complete app, we mean all of the supporting services like push notifications, responsive images, analytics, feedback, your backend data, and so on. But we aren't forgetting the coding process itself. As web and mobile developers, we need to be efficient and be able to adopt new technologies with a minimal amount of overhead. Now, I have a whole host of updates to share with you in terms of our app coding and building experience in the platform. Now, clearly the most important update is in regards to our unified Telerik Platform UI in our web client. You can easily switch contexts and go from writing code to scaffolding new views or vice versa here with a single click. And we can't emphasize enough these other tabs here though. We've granted you the ability to easily enable analytics, which you can use to measure your app's performance and view crash reports. We also have one-click access to enabling push notifications. Now, these can be delivered to segments of your apps, and really they're fully customizable. And you also can't overlook the ability to gather in-app feedback from your users. Now, this is in-app feedback literally your users will use while they're testing the app. And we can't forget about business logic, of course. You can specify server-side app logic and even schedule jobs that take place at specific intervals. Now, aside from our unified UI, we do have OS-specific updates to share as well. So let's start with Android. We now support the latest Android 6 cloud builds today and plan on providing more robust integration with the Google Play Store in 2016, similar to what we have today for the iOS App Store. On the iOS side of things, just as we support Android 6 cloud builds, right after iOS 9 came out, we provided full support for iOS 9 apps. And even though it's not iOS per se, our NativeScript team has created a proof of concept app for tvOS to support the new Apple TV. And you can read all about that at nativescript.org/blog. We're also leading the industry with iOS wearable support by providing support for Apple Watch development with our new Cordova plugin. Now, our Apple Watch support is a pretty cool example of how flexible the Telerik platform can be to support this coming onslaught of wearable devices. What you're seeing here are examples of all the types of UI controls you can create for an Apple Watch today with very minimal effort using only JavaScript. If you're curious about Apple Watch development at all, do a search for Apple Watch in the Telerik blogs, and you'll find a post I wrote about getting started. Speaking of plugins, most of you probably know about our verified plugins marketplace, and thank you for making it such a hit. Available at plugins.telerik.com, our marketplace provides one-click integration with the Telerik platform, along with a host of screenshots, sample apps, and sample code. So you can see that I can go from the marketplace website to a demo app in the Telerik platform, to an app here running on my device in less than a minute, or maybe about a minute. So how cool is this? Now, traffic to the marketplace is at an all-time high thanks to some really great plugins we've introduced lately. So we've been working closely with the folks at Mapbox to create a truly native mapping solution that blows Apple and Google Maps out of the water. Mapbox leverages the open source OpenStreetMap tiles, which means you get far greater detail and more frequently updated maps, along with blazing speed of their OpenGL rendered views. Mapbox is part of a new era of plugins from Telerik that will be available for both Cordova and NativeScript apps. Now, if you hold in your hands an iPhone 6S or 6S Plus, you'll be happy to hear we have the first 3D Touch plugin on the market. Using 3D Touch, you can press and hold on an app icon to bring up a context menu of quick-to-access features. Super cool feature for the future of iOS. Now, Cordova developers who are looking for an easy win in terms of performance need to look no further than our immensely popular native page transitions plugin. We recently released a new version that is definitely worth checking out. Anyway, you can find all of these plugins at plugins.telerik.com for Cordova and for NativeScript. Now, switching gears a bit, everyone's least favorite part about developing for iOS is dealing with provisioning profiles and certificates. That's why we created the Companion app to allow you to test an app on a real device without having to mess with provisioning. You saw me demo this earlier when I went from the Plugins Marketplace to App Builder. Well, we recently made some changes to the Companion apps and added a variety of our verified Plugins Marketplace plugins. What this means for you is that you can see how your plugin interaction works inside of the Companion apps without having to test on a quote-unquote real device. Now, we are the first in the industry to add such broad plugin support to our Companion app. Next up, our Visual Studio developers will be very pleased to know that we support step-through debugging in our extension for Visual Studio. You simply deploy an app to your device, set one or more breakpoints, and you'll see in the IDE when you hit a breakpoint, and you can go ahead and fully debug the output. Very cool stuff. Now, Telerik Platform in the enterprise is a huge topic, and I can't really do it justice here. I can, however, give you some brief updates on what is coming. If you use Telerik Platform in the enterprise, you'll most likely want the ability to include cloud builds in your existing continuous integration workflow. Now, I'm pleased to say with this release, we'll be offering a beta version of CI builds with a Jenkins plugin. We're also working on plans to support TFS next year. Now, enterprise developers will also want to save time publishing updates to apps, which is why improvements to App Manager Live Sync are just around the corner. What is App Manager Live Sync, you ask? Well, it's a feature we introduced earlier this year that allows you to dynamically update an existing app without resubmitting that app to the app stores. So you can literally get an app update in the hands of your users in seconds as opposed to days or weeks. Our updates to App Manager Live Sync include the ability to customize everything about the process, from the text that is shown to your end users when there's an update available, to making app updates mandatory, to customizing when and how the updates are shipped. There are, of course, far more enterprise developer-focused features than this, such as full extensibility support in Screen Builder. Now, we try to deliver a wide range of options with Screen Builder, but we know we will never cover all these use cases and needs. However, with Screen Builder, you'll now be able to create and manage your own view types and share those across projects. This way, users of Screen Builder can create their own custom view types that are used in their own company, saving hours of time rebuilding the same sets of screens over and over. Some super exciting stuff coming from Screen Builder. Now, I apologize if this felt like a whirlwind tour. There's, of course, much more available online, and you can read up on all of this at telerik.com/platform. Now, I'm running out of time here and therefore would like to send it back over to Hristo. Thanks.
Thank you again, Rob. So now let's move on to a new set of capabilities that we are introducing into our mobilizing data category. So offline files and caching has been an integral part of the Telerik platform. We introduced it back in May in Telerik Next, but now we are adding files and caching to the way you can build mobile apps today. We're also introducing Schedule Cloud Code, which allows you to run recurring cloud functions in our server so that you can have much more complex business logic in our backend services. We are also working hardly on supporting aggregation queries, which are allowing you to do an amazing set of operations with our backend services, which we are going to see in a second. We're also introducing support for Salesforce Data Connector, so Salesforce is making it this way in this release as well. And in order to make it much easier for you guys to test our SQL Server data connectors, we have introduced a much easier way to spin up a SQL Server data connector, get it up and running, and evaluate the Telerik platform for those capabilities. So building offline ready apps has been really an important part of your day-to-day job. That is why we introduced those capabilities in the beginning of May at our Telerik Next worldwide conference. Back at that time, we introduced an ability to store data at the device that is cached and stored locally. We introduced a way to store it into the file system and into the local storage of the browser, both ways. It is supported both in hybrid and native script apps. We introduced a way to synchronize this data stored at the device to the server. And we also introduced 3 different strategies on how you can synchronize this data if there are conflicts with the data stored at the server. With this release, we're also introducing much easier way to store files offline and a way to cache data so that you don't have to go and request data constantly from the server if you know that this data doesn't have to be refreshed that often. So let's start with offline files. We wanted to make it extremely easy to be able to really persist images or any kind of files in your device. So if you know that, for example, a specific image needs to be downloaded once and shown many times, you can easily do that by simply putting the data offline attribute in your image tag. You can also decide, if it's an image, you can also decide what is the data loading image that you want your customers to see before this resource is loaded. So you can put some kind of a image that is a standard image showing a blank example of what your image might be. You can also put a data error image. So for example, if for some reasons your app cannot download the resource, you can show some kind of an error image to the user. And we also introduced responsive images, which pretty much allow you to really adjust the image, to really request an image from the server that is for a specific screen size. So for example, if you have a huge image at the server, let's say 5 megabytes image that has to be that big so that you can see it in a, let's say, in a browser. When you're seeing this image in a tiny mobile screen, you don't need the whole 5 megabytes image. You just need a specific resolution. And with data responsive, what we're doing is automatically calculating the viewport of this image at the device and requesting this resource from the server in a much smaller way. So you can actually also use the offline for any kind of resources. So it doesn't have to be an image, it can be any kind of a document. So this is supported in any kind of resource. The way it works is you need to initialize the backend services SDK here with our new app ID, say offline true, and then call a specific method that is making sure that all those HTML attributes are processed and you have the final output. Caching support. So we know that there are many cases where you need to simply request a specific set of data from the server, but you want to cache this. So for example, let's say you need to download the list of countries in a specific region. Well, in a specific continent, for example. We know that they don't change that often. Countries are a specific set, so you want to just download it once and use them in the next, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks, so that you don't make extra calls to the server. With this release, we are making it really easy to do that. you can easily go and initialize our SDK with our new app ID and say I want to support caching. You can do this as a globally across the whole all the resources that are being downloaded with the backend services SDK. But there is more to it. For example, you can customize the global settings for the maximum 18 minutes. So by default, if you say caching true, we are making all the resources available in the next 60 minutes, and then we're going to refresh the data. You can customize that, or you can go and override the global settings for a specific content type. Let's say the countries, you want to just get them once a month. So you can just easily customize that. And for some critical content types that you want to retrieve from the server, you don't want to have any kind of caching enabled because it is really important for you to have this data as fresh as possible. Of course, for some cases, you might need to make sure that there is no cache, so you can easily use the ignore cache method to ignore that. Also, you can actually force the cache. So let's say that the expiration time for a specific data type has expired, and you know that if you retrieve this collection, it's going to be retrieved from the server, but for some reasons, you can force the cache and get whatever is available locally. Schedule Cloud is the next thing that we're introducing into this release. With Schedule Cloud Code, you can execute server-side business logic automatically on predefined intervals. It works by writing your business logic into a cloud function and then deciding how often you want to execute this function. Based on your Telerik Platform subscription, you can choose to execute this cloud code function every day, every hour, or every minute. And to make sure that, because we are understanding that a lot of more complex business logic will be written into this kind of operation, we are making sure that you have longer execution time for those set of recurring jobs. So let's start with an example. So we want to send an email report every hour for the number of newly registered users in our app. And writing this business logic into the client is hard, and it doesn't make sense because we want this to happen on the server. Using the Schedule Cloud Code, we can do the following. We can create a cloud function, and here is an example on a cloud function and a code where you're using our JavaScript SDK into the cloud code to get our users collection. Once we retrieve our users collection from the database, we can decide to send an email to a specific email based on the data count. So let's say I want to receive an email every hour for the number of newly registered users. So this is, let's say, sending the total count. So you can see the final number of users that have been registered into the system. So once you write your business logic into our interface, you can pretty much save it, and let's say we're going to save it as send email summary. So this is where you can find how you can write cloud code functions today into the new unified app interface. So it's in business logic into our Explorer, and here in cloud functions we have saved this send a summary function. Next we can go to the next screen, which is Schedule Cloud Code, and here we can pretty much create a name for our job and select the cloud code function that we want to execute every hour. Here we can decide from the interval, so you can see that we can decide to execute every minute, every hour, every day, every week or month. We can decide to only execute it once. If our business logic requires something to happen into the future at a specific time frame, you can do that. You can choose from the start date and end date, and then you can also decide that you want to execute it in a specific number of occurrences. So you can say, okay, I want this job to execute only 10 hours. Once you save that, your schedule cloud will be running based on your schedule. Aggregation queries has been one of the most requested features into our data services. So people want to be able to group specific set of records by one or more fields and apply standard group operators to this record set. So for example, if you're dealing with numeric fields, you want to get the sum or the minimum, maximum, or average for a specific set of values. With this preview that we're currently announcing, you will be able to pretty much soon use this feature into your existing backend services API. With it, you will be also able to get distinctive values for a specific record set. Using our data connectors, you can effortlessly connect your mobile app to your organization's existing data. So with this release, we're introducing the new Salesforce Data Connector. And the Salesforce Data Connector allows you to expose data and reports from an existing Salesforce application. You can use this data to create a mobile app that is powered by the Telerik Platform. After setting up the data connector, you can consume Salesforce data using the standard data operation. We're also allowing you to consume specific set of Salesforce reports. So after setting up the data link connectors and after you connect it to a Salesforce, you can access Salesforce reports and run them and receive them through HTTP endpoints. Now back to you, Brandon.
Thanks, Hristo. And Rob, thank you too. That was great. We covered a lot of ground today, and I hope that every one of you found something that you want to dig into further. Whether it's new features in Screen Builder, our native script updates, our new cross-platform desktop IDE, new unified UX, new analytics dashboards and reports, scheduled cloud code, our Salesforce data connector, or one of the other new features discussed today. There was so much packed into the last hour. No matter what it is, there's never been a better time to build mobile apps fast, forward, and with the Telerik platform. With that, there's nothing left at this point except for you to take the Telerik platform for a spin. If you've never tried the platform before, head on over to platform.telerik.com to create an account. And if it's been a while, we'd love for you to jump back in, see what's new, and let us know what you think. Now we're going to transition over to some live Q&A. And we've been collecting your questions in the question UI over the course of the last hour. And we've selected a handful to cover over the next few minutes. And we're going to switch over to live Q&A here in a moment, so bear with us if there's any noise or screen flickering as we do so. But we'll make the switch, and then Rob and I will be back with you shortly.